I'm going to turn everything on its head, and this is sort of the accumulation of everything that we have been talking about in the past 2 days. In 2012, USP made a very important investment, right, which is the RSD. So we all implemented it, and the first courses to implement it were the 100 level courses, UU 114 and UU 100. 5 years down the line, no evaluation has been done to actually critically say whether this is all working, and if it's working, then exactly how is it working. So as part of my PhD studies, I decided to be the cynic and look at this entire thing in its totality, and to use UU 114, English for academic purposes, because we all know the issues that our students have with writing. And so I decided to do this and see how RSD would fare in it. So this is the story of the entire RSD implementation in relation with academic skills, and in particular, writing skills. Okay? So I decided to go to take this back to the very people who make the difference, to whom we apply this frame to. And who do we apply this to? To our students, right? So I decided that this was the conceptual framework to look at. That there is always, when there is learning, there is always the learner, and the learner always has a perception, right? So if I ask you, are you a kind-hearted person? Who's not? Right, so you'll give yourself a rating. Now, it's not necessary that you are as kind-hearted as you say you are, right? So that would be rated in the performance. And then it is necessary again to see if there is that trajectory, if there is actually that transformation or development over time. And these things are all, of course, in the RSD framework, because UU 114, not only are the assessments aligned to RSD, I mean, you can just take a rubric, make it RSD, and there you go, problem solved. Or you can actually apply the development of research skills development as part of the didactics of the course. So to begin with, I decided to begin with the whole idea of perception. Okay, and then this is, by the way, a study over a semester, and this is what it looks like. So it was an experimental design. I could not just take 10 students and put them in a lab, you know, and leave them there. So this was, I did still want it to be experimental and to get qualitative as well as quantitative data. The sampling was purposeful. UU 114 generally has slightly more than 1,000 students face-to-face mode every semester. So the students were there, just needed to get them. And it is very, very important to do triangulation, to make sure that I approach the same concept using different strategies, just to make sure that things happen. So, this is what it looked like. The course itself has assessments, research essay, and semester test, the oral seminar, our research report, and a final exam. What I decided to do was incorporate some additional tools, the diagnostic, the pre-administrative questionnaire, interviews, and then the post-administrative questionnaire, self-administrative questionnaire. Now, the plan was that from the beginning of the semester to the end of the semester, this cohort of students would be followed to see how this all works all together in its totality. And this is what it pretty much looked like. This is the situation. So slightly more than 1,000 students. All students are going to do the assignments by default, right, which is fine. 190 of them managed to do the pre-questionnaire. Now I'll tell you at this point, questionnaires were only given to certain classes. Like I said, this was person sampling. So students were selected by, it was pretty much convenience. It was week 1, class 1, and you know in the first class, students are generally still looking for their classroom. If it's UU 114, they are very confused because their timetable shows UU 114 everywhere. It's because the classes run from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And we had 130 of them do diagnostics. Today I'm going to present on the red number, which is 66. This is a mini cohort of students who were subjected to everything from diagnostic in week 1, right? So they come into the classroom, first class, they do a diagnostic. This is a lot of students fresh out of high school, no treatment. That is what I was aiming for, because I needed to gauge the level of their research skills at that point in time. So no treatment, week 1, diagnostic, plus a questionnaire based on their perception of their research skills. Later on, they would do their assignments. 2 of the students were studied in great detail, so they were followed consistently throughout the semester. And then towards the end, in the last class, they would do the questionnaire, the same questionnaire again, because I wanted to measure if there was a difference. And we move on. So, what I want to do today is just show you a snippet of what I found. These are preliminary findings. Okay? Right, so the first thing is, what are the perceptions of students regarding research? This was the first thing I wanted to find out. The second, what is the relationship? And if there's a relationship between perceptions and the development of their research skills. And lastly, what is the efficacy of RSD framework in the academic writing of students from whom English is a second language? In other words, do we stop John from coming to Fiji anymore? Right, so to begin with, the perception of students regarding research. There were a number of questions, and one of the questions was, conducting research produces trustworthy outcomes. Do you think I had an option? Yes, no, don't know. Perception in the first week. 51% said yes, conducting research produces trustworthy outcomes. 41% said, we don't know. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. And 8% said, no, it doesn't. Same question, perception by the last week. 97% said, yes, conducting research produces trustworthy outcomes. 3% said, they didn't know. And no one said no.
For the last one.
And the next question was, being able to conduct research is a useful and worthwhile skill. Same thing, pre and post. Perception in the first week, 85% said it is a useful and worthwhile skill. 11% did not know, 4% said no. What do you think happened in the last week? Everyone said yes. By the way, this is the same group of students, okay? I'm not doing independent sampling. This is the same group. Now, then there were other questions. There were 4 questions per construct. What we did was, there were some questions, like 4 questions, which were asking the same thing. And first set of 4 were about research skills. The second set of 4 was about ability to conduct research. And we decided to use statistical tests for this. So Wilcoxon-signed Rex test was used. And this is essentially because the sampling was non-parametric. And what we found out was that when it comes to research skills, the difference is significant, which means it does change from week 1 to the last week. And ability to research, this is not significant. This does not change very much. It does change, but it does not change at a level where we can say it's significant. Now there was the second question. So the perception is fine, right? We know what they're doing. They're essentially moving in the right direction, the direction we want them to move to. So we are all doing something right. But what is the relationship between the perception and the performance? This is the relationship. They rated themselves higher than their actual performance. Now, how did I find this out? Use a measure of, remember the questionnaire in week 1 of the diagnostic, compare that, and then the questionnaire in the last week with their last assignment in the last week. This time, Spearman's raw tests were used to establish relationship, and we found negative correlation in both cases. So in both the cases, our students were rating themselves a little bit higher. And now the final question. What is the efficacy of the RSD framework when related to the ESL students' academic writing skills? The measures listed were progress from the initial to the final assessment, right? If I want to know what actually happened, if there is a pattern, did something change, then you need to look from the very first assessment to the last one. And progress from each assessment in between. So you see what's happening? It's not just point A to Z, it's between A, B, C, D, and all of that. And again, Wilcoxon was used. Results. From the initial to the final assessment, there is a significant difference. So they do develop. And there is significant difference between all assessments, right, so A, B, C, D, between all of them, except the last one. And now I want to show you something interesting. And this is what generally happens in learning. This is the graph. So if you look at it, you can see the first peak, right, and then there's a little lull and then it goes up again. The last bit did not have significant difference, essentially because that is where they started to plateau. But this is pretty much textbook. This is how learning takes place. People develop, there might be a lull, they'll go up again. If we had more points, it would show GEJs, like my supervisor says. So, what are the preliminary findings? 1, students accept the importance and relevance of RSD development more positively over time, as we could see. As time passes on, they do have a more positive perception of it. Now, their perception is greater than their performance, but fortunately, their performance does improve over time. And lastly, RSD academic skills do develop significantly over time where writing is concerned. So what comes next? Is it enough for me to stop here and say this is it? So students do develop and writing does develop and this is it. Well, we've decided to go a step further and actually go inside the writing to see exactly where this happens and exactly how this happens. So are they, for example, using enough quotations, or how does it develop, or what is the quality, what is the content, all of these things. So what is going to happen is I'm going to do a detailed analysis of writing to determine the change in complexity over time. And that you will learn about after 6 months. So, thank you very much. Please.